Oh yeah, we got a 8 or 9. All right, boys, we
Cool.
are live Tuesday here, 1 o'clock on the Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. over in Europa. We got Mark and Dave here. Dave's got some fancy sunglasses. Go ahead, put them on. People like the sunglasses. We just internationally gotten cooler, or at least Dave did anyway. So we're here to talk about training methods.
FC.
There you go. Look at you.
All right,
So we're going to talk about training methods and what we like to use, what you should use, what you can use, what you shouldn't use, all stuff that. If you don't know what and understand what a training method is, it is the complexity of the workout that you're about to do. So go ahead, Dave. You want to start off because we'll start off with GBC because that is one of my favorite things to do, especially with fat loss. So if you want to explain a little bit about it, who should use it, why we should use it, and we'll go into detail.
Sure. German body comp is one of those methods that was founded by Charles Poliquin, really, really well-known strength and conditioning coach. If you don't know who he is, look him up. He's probably one of the most accredited strength and conditioning coaches there is. GBC can be used by really anyone. It just depends on rep ranges, things like that, how you're tweaking things. Usually, I like to use it in a total body type format. So usually it would be like an upper body. So let's say a press followed by a lower body movement, like a leg curl. Okay. And, generally speaking, the reason why I like that is because while the upper body works, the lower body's resting. While the lower body works, the upper body's resting. So somebody gets a good amount of rest in between. And then you can always play with how you want to progress the client, whether you decrease the rest periods, you increase the sets, you can decrease over the period of 3 to 4 weeks, you can decrease the actual reps. So let's say a beginner might start with something like a 10 to 12 rep range. And a more advanced person, as they get more advanced, you might actually have somebody doing a 4 to 6 or 6 to 8 as they get more efficient with that mind-body or mind-muscle connection, right?
So, Dave, what do you have clients use this for? Is this a fat loss type mechanism? Is that hypertrophy? Is it strength?
Well, that's going to be dependent on where the client is in their journey. But most of the time, I'm using it for more of like a fat loss type phase. Yeah, but they're gonna a lot of newbies, people that have like 1 to 3, 0 to 3 years of experience are going to be using this for muscle building as well. I mean, it's just going to happen naturally just from eating better and But I find it just works very well because it's not taxing them in one specific area too much. And it's a very good workout, and you learn movements. I like to do like 2 workouts over the course of 2 different workouts over the course of a week. So 4 total workouts, but 2 of the same work of basically 2 different workouts. So total 1, total body 2, and then rest, and then maybe repeat, and that's it. Something like that.
Mark, you want to touch up on how you use GBC? I'm sure you use it.
Yeah, like I use it in a very similar way to Dave. I think it's a great program that can be modified so much, and there can be so many different versions of it. It could be an A1, A2, it could be an A1, A2, A3, so 3 exercises in a row. The original popularized form by Charles was sort of 4 supersets, basically, so A1, A2, up to a D1, D2. I think what I use it for a lot as well, particularly with beginner clients, is it's great for fat loss, like Dave says, but also for fixing structural imbalances. So if you've got clients that have a weak upper back, or they have they have a unilateral deficiency one way or the other, it's a very good way of improving those things. And then that in turn, what I often do with clients is phase 1 of this might be I call it a structural body comp program. And then phase 2 might be the same layout, but you're going into bilateral exercises. So for example, a step up is a unilateral quad-based exercise, a squat is a bilateral quad-based exercise, and going from that single leg movement to a bilateral movement makes it a completely different workout. So I think we probably use it all in some shape or form, particularly early on with clients.
Yeah. So I do very similar. The only thing that I was going to touch base on with that is understanding. So a lot of these training methods and what we utilize all have to come with certain parameters, right? So the amount of reps you use to the time of rest to the time under tension, it all makes sense and relevancy there. So I use it strictly for fat loss, no rest. And depending on who it is, I might even go up to A4 with certain exercises. And like you guys do, I do a lot of contrasting body parts. I try to do very, multi-joint movements like your squats and your deadlifts and your presses and stuff like that. So I like to use it for fat loss because I feel like it's the most productive way to do so.
Yeah. No, definitely. I agree. A couple of points with it as well that some people may not realize is, in my opinion, men will find it much harder than females because it creates a lot of lactic acid, which in turn can improve your growth hormone levels. That's the sort of theory behind it in terms of fat loss. And most men just don't particularly do well with high levels of lactic acid. I think they're sick much easier than females are. They tend to go crazy on the first set or two, while females tend to save themselves a little bit more. So men, I train quite a few husbands and wives together, and the wives will relatively absolutely kick their ass in that program. So one of the rules of weight training that I have generally compared to men to females is I usually give females slightly longer rest. Sorry. I usually give males slightly longer rest compared to females. So, for example, I'm giving a male 75 seconds. I'll usually give the female 60 seconds because they tend to recover a little bit quicker. They also tend to get bored more easily, and they like a little bit more variety. So
what about the percentage of, like, what about the intensity you put? You use like 70% RM, 80%. How do you guys?
I'm generally trying to go for. I mean, obviously, it's depending on the rep range that you're going for, but I would look for 75% plus. But again, if you're training a beginner client, they've got no idea what the hell that is, So what I find often with people, and this is not to sound sexist, but you tend to see this more in females, is they'll be doing a bench press, for example. Let's say you're doing a dumbbell bench press for 10 to 12 reps, and you're picking a weight that you think is 75% of their 1 rep max. They'll sort of do 9 reps, like it's the easiest thing in the world, and then just go, I can't do it. So sometimes it's mentally being able to push through that. It's knowing what you can do.
That's true.
Certain people freak out with certain exercises, like learning to do a chin-up at first. People really freak out just from lowering themselves down. They almost worry that they're going to die. So little point is just to get them used to hanging from a bar first, just holding the weight, then they can just put the feet down. So I think there's in terms of the percentage load, it will really depend. But for an advanced trainee, kind of touching on what Dave said, I will go slightly lower reps. I'll go down to like a 6 to 8, which is going to be probably pushing up to like 80% at the max. But doing it in an upper lower fashion, like what Dave says, you're not going to be able to lift as much because you're going to be blowing. It's going to feel much more cardiovascular. And the reason why Dave said the sort of diagonal body parts is he said like a hamstring curl into a chest based exercise. You would do sets of that, and then ideally you would probably go into more of a quad based exercise and upper back. And that's called peripheral heart activation or PHA type training. And it's basically pumping blood and oxygen to one area and then to the opposite area. So it creates a lot of circulation in the body, and it creates a big demand. And that's usually where the fat loss benefit comes from.
For sure.
Yep, good.
And what you already mentioned with the hormonal response you get to accumulate there. So
exactly.
Awesome. So while you're ready talking, Mark, so let's hear what your favorite training method is.
So some of my, because you guys, I think, are going to talk a little bit about sort of fat loss based programming. I'm going to bring in a couple of more strength based programs. Well, one particularly that I really like that not many people have used before, and it's a program called Modified Triphasic. So what this program basically is, it's like a relative strength program, meaning that you're training around a 4 to 8 rep range. So it's pretty heavy. It works much better for a split routine. So a chest and back day, a leg day, a maybe arms day. What you're doing with this program, it's originally based on the original Triphasic program, which is very much based for athletes. This is the modified version, so it's slightly higher reps. What we're doing is you're training a few weeks in focusing on the eccentric component of the lift, which is the lowering. And then you're doing a couple of weeks concentrating on the isometric portion of the lift, which is like a pause. And then 2 weeks of focusing on more the concentric. So what I mean is you pick 2 exercises, just for simplicity, we'll say it's a back squat into a hamstring curl as an A1, A2. For 2 weeks, you do a 6-0-1-0 tempo. That basically means you go down for 6 seconds. So you're lowering super, super slow, 0 pause. You lift up for 1 second, 0 pause at the top. So your eccentric portion of your lift should be the strongest component of your lift. So you should be able to lift relatively a lot of weight here. You do 2 weeks of that phase, and then you move on to 2 weeks of an isometric. So what you do is you go down for 3 seconds, so 3, 2, 1, and then you pause for 3 seconds in that very bottom position. So you're taking out what's called the stretch reflex. So it basically stops you bouncing out of that position, takes out the elasticity of the muscle, and then you lift up for 1. Then you do 2 weeks of a 2-0-1-0 tempo, which is basically 2 down, 1 up. So it's much more of an emphasis on your concentric. And what I like to do, particularly maybe at first, when the client first does it, is I'll do 6 sets of that, but I'll actually do 2 sets of each tempo to see where they're at, to see where they're strong in. You'll find most men will be very, very strong concentrically. They're used to lifting weights fast, but they're not very used to pausing at the bottom, or they're not used to that slow, controlled movement down. So for me, it works great for somebody that's wanting to break through a plateau, that's stuck in a rut, that wants to get stronger and bigger. Yeah, I really like that.
Good.
I've cool.
never used it. I've done different methods of phasing where I have done, tempo to iso holds to different like dead stop training. So very simplistic, but my phases are usually around 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to try that, man. Yeah, you should do. I mean, for what I found, because I've taught a lot to attendees of seminars over the years, and in the seminar I tend to do, as I say, the 2 sets, like so 2 sets of 6-0-1-0, 2 sets of the pause, 2 sets fast. And it makes it a little bit more interesting. So for clients that you maybe feel might get bored doing that program, that would probably be a better way to go. But it's really cool in terms of the effects that you see on people. And some people die, and then they get onto that fast tempo and they're like, bum, 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 bum. So it's very cool for finding out where your weakness is and basically what you need to work on. So if, for example, I'm training Dave and he is relatively weak isometrically, which, is probably going to be the case looking at those very, very aesthetic guns, all show no go, shall we say.
Thanks.
I would then focus on a phase after that of a lot of isometric training with Dave. So it could be isometronics or something like that. And that will then switch on his nervous system, improve his strength levels, that he should improve the other sides of training, the eccentric and the concentric as well. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it makes sense to me. If I was to train Dave, I would just do wrist curls all day long for him.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
and so
his wrists are pretty strong.
And by the way, guys, if Tony does need to rush off at some point, I do apologize for him. He's got a slight case of the runs downstairs at the moment, so I'm going to pass it over to you, Tony. What would be your favorite training program?
No, I'm good. Thank you. I appreciate you caring about me. Yeah, exactly.
That's okay. That's okay.
Weekend away with the boys is not helpful for me, by the way. So anyway, there's different relevancy to what Dave talked about is training age. So if you're brand new, some of the complexities of these workouts and training methods you really shouldn't be doing, because it takes time to develop the stability to train a certain way and stuff like that. And a good coach will help you recognize that and do things. So with that being said, I like to use a method. There's a couple different methods, and Dave's going to talk a little bit about a method called 612. I'm going to talk about 8816, and Dave, you can talk about 612. 8816 is a method that we use, and I primarily use it for hypertrophy. And it's a mechanism of doing 8 reps, 0 rest, 8 reps again, and then you go into 16 reps to finish. And debating on who you are, what my exact, goal is, I generally keep it around the same muscle group. So for instance, if I'll just use like quads, for instance, if I was doing quads, I would do like a high handle trap bar for 8. And then on my second 8, if you have a good training age and you've been training for a while, I'd go progressive on the second 8, and then I would lighten it up, probably about % of the intensity, and go to 16. And boys, I have found that to be a phenomenal hypertrophy response. And especially, like, I call it my plateau buster. So if I get like clients like Mary Davis, who's been training for a long time, she's got other coaches as well, and she needed something to change. So I implemented just a few things like that, and also implemented a 612, and it made a world of difference. So if you guys are...
Can I just ask you, so sorry, do you keep the same exercise for the 8816, yeah?
I do keep the same exercise.
So what I find personally is I love that. I call that the 8816 triple drop set, because the other 8816 I use would be 3 different, so the same body part, but 3 different actual exercises. Mm-hmm. So let's say it might be a trap bar deadlift, like you said, then into a back squat, then into a leg press or something like that. I personally find that doing the 3 different exercises gives better hypertrophy response, but doing your triple drop version gives better fat loss response. That's what I found too, because I think the obviously different stimulus of the 3 different exercises. creates more growth. So that's what I love that program. I think it's brilliant, and women respond very, very well to it, as you said, and it gets a serious sweat on as well, which I think most people like when they train.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, every client you're going to have to gauge obviously to see what's beneficial for you. But for me, Plateau Buster, that's my go-to.
Yeah.
David, what do you do for 612?
I was going to ask you, are you varying the tempo on the second 8?
Good question. Yeah.
So primarily on the first one, I do a 3010, and on the second one, I slow it down a little bit more, and I go 4010.
Oh, wow.
And it usually depends. And sometimes if they're not high in training age, or they're kind of like in that between maybe like 3-4 years ish, then I would do the opposite and speed it up in the beginning, or slow it down in the beginning and speed it up. And it also depends too, because sometimes I also don't increase the second 8. So it really just depends on variation to kind of mix things up.
Yeah, I play a very similar thing. I usually go 4010, 3010, 2010. Or if I want to be a dick, I'll put a pause at the bottom at the start or something like that. You know, add quarters or whatever like that to have fun. Just before you talk, Dave, I just need to talk about a friend of mine who did this program, and I'll tag him on here to make sure he gets it. So this was at a course in Dublin a long time ago, and it's a friend of mine called Reese Manda, and he did.
I know Reese.
Yeah, you know Reese. Okay, so he's a good guy. He's about as strong as a toothpick, but that's not his problem. So we were paired together to do this 8-8-16 triple drop, and it happened to be a high handle trap bar deadlift, and he went first before me. And the time that it took him to complete set 2 and 3, he was walking down the stairs, and it's where the course is in Dublin. It's right next to a marina, so he was literally projectile vomiting into the ocean again and again. Then he was pushed to do his next set. It was the most pitiful showing I've ever seen by a trainer in my life. It was brilliant, and he's never lived it down 4 years later.
Perfect. Make sure you tag him so he knows that you're.
Don't worry, I will. So sorry, Dave. Yeah.
No, you're good.
Where are you going to go with in terms of talking about 612? Was it?
In 612, 612 is a great method that I'll use. I mean, bringing somebody off, even a relative beginner, I feel like can use this program, and it's good not only for hypertrophy, but they're going to gain some strength off of it as well, just because dipping into that, rep range of 6 for a relatively newer person is going to yield some nice strength gains. But it's also great for hypertrophy because a lot of times you'll go agonist movements, so basically the same muscle group. So you might use like for chest, for instance, you might go from like a press to like a fly or a pec deck, something like that. So 6 and then 12. I really like this. Because that superset specifically is very good for hypertrophy, obviously. But again, like they have to have like the actual efficiency and execution. And I guess that's what building up with the first 1 or 2 phases would be for if you were to use this with the beginner to really get that foundation first and foremost.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, what about as far as rest goes and tempos that you use?
Oh, good question. Good question. So 6, the first one's going to be obviously a little slower. I might use a 4010 or even a 5010. And then a 12, I might use like a 2011 or, depending on what the exercise is. So if I was doing a fly, I might do like a 2011, maybe make it the contraction at the top a little harder, and then just keep an even pace for the 6. For rest periods, depending on how advanced they were, I may just do like a 10 to 30 second rest period, and then go into like maybe like a 90 seconds to 2 minutes after the 12.
Yeah,
something like that, depending on what I was focused on, more or less.
Because there's always a transition period, whether the moving machine or something like that.
Yeah.
So, Mark, what do you got going on? Do you ever use 612 or no?
Yeah, no, I love 612. I use different forms of it, and I think for you guys listening, so you kind of get it, is a nice way to remember it. Depending on what you're training. If you're training more for body composition goals, then and you want to use a 612 program, I would recommend doing like what Dave says. So let's say he paired 2 chest exercises there. On your day 1 of training, you would pair 2 chest exercises with 2 hamstring-based exercises. So, for example, it might be 6 hamstring curls into 12 Romanian deadlifts, rest, 6 dumbbell press into 12 flies, like what Dave said. The way I work that is it's A1. So let's say it's the ham curl, rest 10 seconds. A2 Romanian deadlift, rest 90 seconds, then actually go into A3, so the dumbbell press, rest 10 seconds, A4, fly, rest 90 seconds, and then back through, and I would do 5 sets of that. Does that make sense?
That. Yeah, for
Yeah.
fat loss.
That's a good variation.
And
Absolutely.
then day 2 would be the same program and format, but for quads and back. So, for example, it would be let's say a back squat, 6 back squats to rest 10 seconds into 12 alternating dumbbell lunges, rest 90 seconds, then 6 chin-ups into 12 seated rows, rest 90 seconds, 5 sets through. And then usually for fat loss with that, I'll pair some energy system work at the end, so it's some interval training for 5 to 10 minutes at the end of that program. And it works superbly well. And generally, I would alternate the programs. So program 1, program 2. So they would do probably, my average client trains 3 times a week. So Monday would be workout 1, Wednesday workout 2, Friday workout 1, repeat. So in 4 weeks, they're hitting both programs 6 times.
So you like the agonist antagonist type style stuff, right?
For body composition training, I think it works better. What I was going to say is, if you're doing it more for hypertrophy purposes, you would do more opposite body parts. So you do chest paired with back. So those 2 back exercises that I said, you would pair with chest. And then leg exercises, you would pair those together. So you do the squats and the hamstrings day, and then you do an arms day, because that is going to elicit more growth. And I would change the format of that in terms of, I would do it just an A1, A2 rest and repeat. Then it would be a B1, B2. So rather than going through the full 4, it would be more killing one body part once specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. So my mechanism that I use 6-12-4, and this is my favorite, and there's other ways I do it too, but I do a low handle trap bar deadlift right to a high handle trap bar deadlift. And usually keeping the same intensity. It's phenomenal. No, it's nasty, but it's so productive. And usually, my rest period, the transition time for me flipping the bar over 10 to 15 seconds or so. And then depending on who they are, usually someone 2 minutes type thing. And it usually just depends on looking at them also. And, if they're stoked, then, give them more rest.
Yeah. The good thing about that program as well is it's relatively quick. You can be done in 40 minutes. You get a serious blow going, you get a massive pump going on, and like I say, you can modify it. Same as every program, it's modifying it. Writing programs is simple, in my opinion, but you have to know how to do it and how to make those small changes, like what Tony said there. It's, that slight difference. Somebody should be able to lift a lot more with that high handle chopper than they should on a low, but do they have the lower back strength and the leg strength to be able to do that exercise? Most people won't, hence why I would go for more of a hand curl variant, which is just knee flexion. There's no stress in the back, and then a bigger lift. But again, the more advanced you are, the bigger the lifts, the harder it can be to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, you want to go into a little bit about, so we talked about some of our training methods and what we use. Let's go with the outcome of how we decide our training methods to be used, as far as, how do we decide what a rest period is? How do we decide a tempo? Because I feel like one of the biggest questions that people get, and I've seen training programs with no rest, no tempo, is just a bunch of exercises, and it blows my mind, because I'm like, well, how do you know what the outcome is going to be? Because you're just doing a bunch of exercises. So if you guys want to go into a little bit of how we come up with what we come up with, and of course we modify as needed, but how do we decide based off of X, Y, and Z? So Dave, you want to start with that, and then Mark, you finish it up?
Sure. I'll just start with that. I mean, what I try to do, if I'm working with somebody like one-on-one, usually what I try to do is, obviously find out what their goals are and then kind of plan backwards. So, let's say somebody has a deadline in 3 months, just starting with like 12 weeks. I might do like the initial phase, like depending on where they are. Obviously setting realistic goals and knowing each other's expectations, kind of setting those from the get-go, and then going from there. Like, so the first 3 or 4 weeks, setting that program, but also thinking about the outcome. So just working your way backwards in terms of programming. So in terms of like tempo and all that, and I'm always wanting to get the client, most people are looking to lose fat and gain muscle. Yeah. That's just pretty much everybody's,
99.9% of my clients.
So with that said, planning backwards and having an idea of like what their final phase is. Usually somebody's going to start off with a little bit less, and then depending on where they're at, and then ultimately, like at the end, their final phase. If I can get people doing like trisets, giant sets, using up a lot of glucose efficiently. And ultimately, my goal is to get people eating more and getting leaner. You know what I mean? I think that's probably most of our goals. But setting themselves to where they're starting almost with less, but they're able to do more and they're able to eat more at the end. You know what I mean? If I'm working with somebody one-on-one, and that way they're set up even more efficiently in terms of metabolically, and they just feel good and they're lean.
All right, so Dave, that's about programming. So Mark, why don't you say, like, how do you decipher somebody's like tempo, and you know, why don't you give an idea of what that actually means?
So basically, I mean, we're going to talk more about this, I think, in another talk in terms of program design and periodization, because it's very important. Obviously, if I'm trying to really simplify things, if you're really stuck on how to write a program or what tempo to use, everything should go by the reps. So what I mean by that, the repetitions determine the workout generally. So what I mean by that is, if you're doing 20 reps, which is pretty high reps for most people, are you going to do 20 sets, or are you going to do more like 3 sets?
3 or 4, yeah.
Yeah, so you're going to do lower. Well, if you're doing 2 reps, are you going to do 1 set, or are you going to do more like 10 sets?
Makes sense.
So
you answered it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's it. I mean, that's a perfect way to explain it.
Yeah.
And basically as well, so I mean, now I'll put up a little chart for the guys so they can kind of see it and understand it. The only anomaly that I can really name that goes against that grain is German volume training, which is quite high reps, 10 reps, and it's 10 sets. Generally, I don't know many programs that you do 10 sets of towards 10 to 12 reps in a hypertrophy range. So the rest and the tempo will be determined from that. So basically, the tempo that you're doing and the reps that you're doing is going to determine the time under tension of that workout. So Dave's already said it. You've already said it, Tony. What is the person's goal? If the person's goal is fat loss, they need to be having at least 30 seconds of time under tension of that. So that's working for a minimum, like 30 up to maybe 75 seconds to create that hormonal response, to create lactic acid. So if you're doing 10 reps and you do it with a 1-0-1-0 tempo, that's only 20 seconds of time under tension. Now, we've done that program before. What is the difference of doing it with that tempo compared to with a 5-0-1-0 tempo, which is 60 seconds of time under tension?
Awful.
It's massively different. So people forget
response is crazy.
Exactly. People forget how easy it is to change a program just with the tempo or just with the rest. Same analogy. Let's use German volume training. You do 10 sets of 10 and you get a 4-minute rest in between each set of squats, or you get 30 seconds. Like it's the same program. Do you know what I mean? And so when you said that before earlier, Tony, that people will write it with no program and rest in mind, that variable alone can make it a completely different workout. And touching on that again, what I said earlier, females are going to respond better to less rest. Males are going to respond better to more rest, as a general rule.
Very true. Yeah.
Beautiful. You know what? You simplify it so much. It can get complicated.
I'm a simple man. I'm a simple man.
Tears to my eyes.
Put your sunglasses on.
I know. Hey.
Yeah. So, but that's the thing. Keep it simple. Program design should be simple, you know, and programs should be simple but brutally effective. So Andre Benoit said this one: do simple things savagely well. Boom.
There you go.
Yeah.
Love it.
Just to touch one more thing on that, this is going to be my final statement. You don't need gimmicky exercises to have a productive program design. All these Bosu one-arm backflips onto a foam roller, none of that shit makes sense.
Do big lifts.
Big lifts. Keep it simple. You cannot replace a deadlift or a squat or anything that's super compound, because that's the most productive thing that's out there. Other than that, that's all I have to say. I hope you guys enjoy this one. We'll be getting more in depth with program design, more tidbits, but this actually will start making sense to you as we get a little bit deeper, but you guys got a good basis there. Mark, anything?
No, I think we covered some good stuff there. What I'll do, guys, is I'll post some videos of some of my clients doing a few of those routines. So because it's always nice to see the person actually doing it, and then you can get an idea of what that is. And then what I would say for you guys is to try the programs, the ones that me, Dave, and Tony talked about, and give us some feedback. How was it? Was it tough? Did you find it easy? You know, whatever.
Yeah, we can probably post just a sample like German Body Comp routine, like a day or two in there as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we all have that stuff laying around, so we could easily do that, and we'll hook you guys up with some good info. But like I said, comment, like us, talk about us, ask us questions because we're here. But other than that, that's all I got. You guys good?
All good.
Yeah.
All right. See you.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.